The event today is the Delinquency Prevention Program Performance Measures Training Session. To make this session as interactive as possible, please use the WebEx chat to respond to any question that you see on the screen. So, for example, answering this question that you see here helps us better understand you and your needs around collecting, tracking, and/or reporting data. One option that could be an issue is keeping collection methods consistent. Another response, accessing data on academic information. The agenda for today includes the following program overview: performance measures, collecting and tracking data and best practices, reporting data and best practices, as well as reporting in a pandemic and what to do with personally identifiable information will be presented. Lastly, we will review key documents and resources. As we progress through the training, all website links mentioned during the training will be presented to you in chat and also provided to you in your copy of the presentation that will be emailed to you later this week. The objectives for today include understanding what the performance measure updates are for your program and understanding the need for a data collection plan for the data you collect between July 2021 and December 2021, reporting in January of 2022. Further, you will gain understanding of the performance measure reporting due dates. Now, as you know, those due dates are twice a year, July 30th and January 30th. Lastly, you will understand where to find supporting resources. In the showcase sessions we conducted last April, we talked about the newly updated performance measures as outlined in your solicitation or award and located at the OJJDP.ojp.gov website. This training is being presented to you to emphasize the fact that now is the time to start planning on collecting and tracking data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle, with the goal of reporting in January 2022 on these newly revised program measures. I'd like to pass the microphone to Ludmil, who's going to go over the performance measures with you. Ludmil?
Thank you, Rebecca, and hello, everyone. So under the intervention division, we have several programs. As Rebecca stated, today we will discuss the Delinquency Prevention Program and their performance measures. So some background on the legislation and guidance. Both the GPRA Act of 1993 and 2010 required agencies to engage in performance management objectives like setting goals and measuring results or reporting on progress. The three essential elements included setting a 5-year strategic plan focused on long-term result-oriented goals, preparing annual performance plans, and preparing annual performance reports. The GPRA Modernization Act then required all agencies to publish strategic and performance plans in readable formats. It also required agencies to review key indicators externally which could impact the achievement of their goals and objectives. The Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act of 2018, also known as the Evidence Act, required the federal government to establish processes to modernize its data management practices, evidence-based functions, and performance management to inform the policy decision-making process. These laws are important to highlight because it shows the trajectory of data and performance management, which has become a focal point for the federal government over the past decade. Under this office for delinquency prevention, the program manager is Kara McDonnell and Heather McDonald. Program supervisors are Kelly Blue, and one of the TCA providers is the Institute for Governmental Research. The desired outcome for the delinquency prevention program is for youth at risk of becoming delinquent or already involved with the juvenile justice system to avoid delinquency by reducing risk factors and enhancing protective factors in their schools, communities, and families. They plan to achieve this by preventing youth involvement in delinquent behavior with the support of state and local prevention efforts, as well as preventing delinquent behavior in tribal youth. Now some more background information. This program has two funding streams, Category 1 and Category 2. Category 1 provides funding to local governments to increase the availability and types of community-based prevention programs to address the needs of at-risk youth or delinquent youth. Category 2 provides funding to tribal entities to support the development and implementation of prevention programs that address the needs of the tribal youth. Through funding, OJJDP intends to assist state, local, and tribal entities to implement evidence-based strategies to address the unmet needs of at-risk or delinquent youth, prioritizing those in rural communities, high poverty, and or persistent poverty areas. And now we will review the performance measures process and then discuss some of the newly updated performance measures found in the Delinquency Prevention Program. As you review these, please note that these measures are newly revised, meaning you will recognize some of them, since not all of them were changed. Please note, we will first cover output measures, measures tracking the volume of activities, then review the outcome measures, measures tracking more long-term changes in attitude systems or individuals. The framework or logic model used to write the performance measures includes 4 components: inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Inputs are program resources such as grant funding and award administration. Activities are actions that convert inputs to outputs and can be anything from identifying key personnel with access to crime and alcohol abuse data to establishing information sharing agreements. Outputs are products or services that are results of activities such as trainings, meetings, and etc. Outcome measures speak to the longer-term program goals. The newly updated performance measures will require changes in the way you collect data, and that's why we are here today, to ensure that you will be reporting on the newly updated performance measures during the July through December 2021 period come January 2022, and that you have a plan in place to do so. OJJDP does understand that data collection will occur in just a few days, and that the organizations or agencies will need time to review, process, and create a data collection plan for certain performance measures. Some indicators will be easier than others. We encourage you to work with your partners and TTA providers to develop a collection plan. The performance measures document the progress you have made in accomplishing program goals and objectives by collecting data on grantee activities and services. Remember, regular reporting on performance measures outcomes establishes your program's growth. You can also find your program's performance measures at this online location listed on the slides here. Performance measures by category. OJJDP identified and organized the newly updated performance measures to include 3 different categories. The categories include overall measures, multi-program measures, and program-specific measures. In overall measures, grantees will be asked for the same overall questions in every program. This allows analysts to aggregate data across multiple programs and assist with responding to ad hoc data requests. Multi-program measures impact 3 different types of populations. 1, shared targeted populations, such as children involved in the child welfare system or tribal youth. 2, those with similar service delivery models, such as whether they're offering mental health services or prevention services. And 3, those with shared outcomes, so broader impact outcomes such as youth provided with defense counsel. Program-specific measures collect data that align with a specific population, funded activity, or desired result. These measures help reflect the unique outputs and outcomes for each specific program and distinguishes them from other programs. Program-specific measures also help track the progress of individual reports over time, or programs over time. And now we'll start by reviewing our first output measure, number of individuals served by population. This is our revised Youth Family Served measure. The revised measure is more expansive. By updating the language from youth to individual served, it is now broader. Grantees can more accurately reflect the population they serve because it is broken down by age demographic. Our team also expanded the definition to include the legal guardians and additional family members. We updated the measure to ensure grantees submit more accurate data that reflects the work of their organization. Percentage of eligible individuals served by a promising program or practice. While OJJDP, percent of eligible individuals served by an evidence-based program or practice. With the enactment of the Evidence Act, it is important grantees start to incorporate evidence-based practices, policies, and programs into their work. As a result, we created an overall measure which helped capture this data. For this measure, you will provide the unique count of new evidence-based practices your organization employed. To calculate the percentage for these data points, you will divide data points A and B by number of individuals served. Percentage of eligible individuals served by a promising program or practice. While OJJDP is encouraging grantees to employ and use evidence-based practices, we understand some may need more time to develop and put the methodology into practice. In lieu of this, OJJDP has encouraged grantees to employ and use promising practices as well. A promising practice is less stringent and strict in definition than that of evidence-based practice. Promising practices also allow the need for moderate quality evidence, with statistical significant average effect size favoring the practice. For this measure, you will first report the distinct count of individuals served by the promising program, then the distinct count of individuals served by a promising practice. Afterwards, you will name the source, the promising program or practice you employed and used. Like our previous measure, to calculate the percentage for data points A and B, you will divide them by the number of individuals served. Percentage of individuals served by a culturally specific service. After meeting with tribal TTA providers and OJJDP federal staff who manage the tribal programs, we wrote measures that would closely align to the work of our tribal grantees. As a result, we developed new measures to help tell these grantees' program stories more holistically. We also wanted to include measures around culture and community, which were not captured in our previous measures or within this Western idea of protective factors. We define culturally specific service as a service delivery model which is tailored to specific communities, language, structures, and cultural environments. For this measure, you will provide the unique count of individuals served by a culturally specific service. To calculate this measure, you will divide the number of individuals served who receive culturally specific services by number of individuals served. Percentage of eligible individuals served by a trauma-informed service. This measure captures the number of individuals who were served by a trauma-informed service. For this, you will provide the unique count of individuals who received the trauma-informed services. To calculate this measure, you will divide the number of individuals served who received trauma-informed services by total number of individuals served. Trauma-informed is defined as services that recognize individuals exposed to violence and trauma and use a method to help them recover from the impacts of trauma without re-traumatization. Percentage of eligible individuals served by a multidisciplinary team. We define a multidisciplinary team as two or more individuals from different disciplines who work collectively to accomplish a shared outcome for a group of individuals. For this measure, you will provide the unique count of individuals served by a multidisciplinary team. To calculate this measure, you will divide the number of individuals served by a multidisciplinary team by the number of individuals served. This ends our review of some of the newly revised output measures. The next set of measures will focus on our newly revised outcome measures, which are meant to track long-term changes in behavior, individuals, and systems. Our first measure, percentage of individuals adjudicated for delinquency. Our first measure is the percentage of eligible individuals detained. For this measure, you will first provide the unique count of individuals eligible for detention, then provide the count of individuals detained. We define detention as the placement of youth in a facility under court authority at some point between the referral to court intake and the case disposition. You will calculate this measure by dividing number of individuals detained of those eligible, line B, by the number of individuals eligible for detention, line A. Percentage of individuals adjudicated for delinquency offense. Adjudication is defined as the judgment in a juvenile receives for the delinquency offense they're charged with. A delinquency offense is defined as an act committed by a juvenile that would be criminal if committed as an adult. For this measure, you will first provide the distinct count of individuals adjudicated for the first-time delinquency offense, then the number of individuals adjudicated for subsequent delinquency offense. You will calculate the percentage for these data points by dividing line A and line B by the total number of individuals served separately. Percentage of eligible individuals adjudicated for a status offense. Adjudication is defined as the judgment a juvenile receives for the delinquency offense they're charged with. A status offense is defined as an act that would not be committed by an adult. Some examples include curfew violations, consumption of alcohol or tobacco based on the individual's age and state and local statutes, or running away. For this measure, you will first provide the distinct count of individuals adjudicated for a first-time status offense, then the number of individuals adjudicated for a subsequent status offense. Like our previous measure, you will calculate the percentage for this measure by dividing data points A and B by the number of individuals served. Percentage of eligible individuals adjudicated for a tribal offense. For this measure, you will first provide the distinct count of individuals adjudicated for a first-time status offense by a tribal court, then the number of individuals adjudicated for a subsequent status offense by a tribal court. You will calculate the percentage for data points A and B by dividing them by the total number of individuals served. Our next outcome measure that we'll be covering is percentage of eligible individuals who violated a court order or condition. A court condition or order documents behavior and service participation expectations ordered by the justice system that an individual must complete to end the system's jurisdiction over them as an individual. For this measure, you will provide the number of individuals assigned a court condition, then the number of individuals who violated a court condition or order. You will calculate this measure by dividing the number of individuals who violated a court order or condition, line B, by the number of individuals assigned a court order or condition, line A. Percentage of eligible individuals who completed their intended service requirements. We define service requirements as actions or behaviors or outcomes in individuals that are expected to be achieved as defined by the program model. For this measure, you will provide the distinct count for data points A through G. Percentage of eligible individuals engaged in service based on the program model. We define program model as a row of planned resources, activities, outputs, and outcomes that capture the intended impact and effects of a program. Our team defined engagement as when an individual is in a collaborative relationship with a program based on the program's model. For this measure, you will provide the unique count of individuals, line A, then provide the unique count eligible individuals engaged in their services, line B. To calculate this measure, divide the number of eligible individuals who engage in services based on the program model by the number of eligible individuals served. Percentage of eligible individuals who completed their required court conditions. For this measure, you will provide the number of individuals assigned a court condition or order, then the number of individuals who completed their assigned court order or condition. To calculate this measure, divide the number of eligible individuals who completed their assigned court conditions by the number of individuals assigned court conditions. Please note, we will skip over the protective factors and conclude our discussion on performance measures by focusing on the one program-specific measures in this program: percentage of eligible individual case plans informed by family members. And now for our last outcome measure: percentage of eligible individuals' wellness plans informed by family members. We define a family member as an individual related by blood or affinity with a close association and assumes responsibility conducive to family life. We define a family-informed wellness plan as a guide created to adjust a child's specific needs by tailoring it to the family's strengths. For this measure, you will first provide the number of individuals with a wellness plan, line A. Then you will provide the number of individuals' wellness plans informed by family, line B. To calculate this measure, divide the number of case plans informed by an individual's family, line B, by the number of case plans created, line A. Now this concludes our review of the newly revised performance measures. I will now hand the presentation back to Rebecca, who will review a quick scenario, then discuss available resources as well as additional information.
Thank you, Ludmil. We have a short scenario for you. Brenda Sokup is a new delinquency prevention grantee. She has just received the newly updated performance measures and attended this learning event. She is sitting at her desk wondering how to get started. What would you recommend Ms. Sokup do to prepare for data collection in the July to December 2021 period, reporting in January 2022? If you'll enter your response into chat, please do so now. And we'll give you just a minute to do that. And some of the things that you may be thinking about, you may be considering the fact that she would want to familiarize herself with the performance measures closely. She'll want to determine who is responsible for capturing and tracking the data, who is responsible for reporting the data in the JustGrants. And each program has a unique or slightly different approach to data collection and reporting. So she would want to take any other considerations from her program into account as she begins her planning. So we'll continue on. Thank you. We'll now review several best practices while collecting and tracking data. Creating a data collection plan requires a good deal of pre-planning and preparation. When creating a data collection plan, best practices often include locating the performance measures for your program, identifying each question that needs to be answered, and creating a plan to identify when and how you will collect the data. For example, what type of tool or instrument will you use? Has the tool or instrument been validated and used before? Has this tool or instrument been used by yourself? And how accurate is this tool or instrument? Lastly, who will collect the data? There are several best practices you can implement when collecting data for the upcoming reporting cycle. Of course, you want to be proactive in your approach. You want to designate staff for the coordination of the performance measure data collection process. You want to review the progress reporting questionnaire before entering data. You want to ensure that designated staff participate in trainings. You want to pay attention to communication from JustGrants. And lastly, if applicable, you want to review, edit, and validate data with subgrantees before reporting, again, if applicable. You're required to enter data on all performance measures that relate to activities described in your OJJDP grant application and carried out with OJJDP funding. As a grantee, you should plan to collect data on behalf of all of your sub-grantees. Some things to think about as you plan to collect and track data include timelines and resources. After all, this can be a lengthy data collection period, as noted in your solicitation. Some of the questions that you may want to consider while planning include duration of data collection and document version control. Does your plan include a beginning, a middle, and an ending date? How will you manage documents over that time period? For example, will you track them using an Excel spreadsheet? Regarding location and access, how long will you store the data? Who will have access to it? And if it is stored on a shared drive, who is given permissions? Lastly, how will any changes be communicated? How will the data be validated and edited if applicable? Okay, things to think about. We're going to move to reporting data and several best practices. In the January 2022 reporting cycle, you'll be reporting on the newly revised performance measures and narrative questions. Narrative questions provide you with the opportunity to answer or address the following topics. What do the numbers you reported on in your performance measures actually mean on the ground? How does your work impact your community? You want to use the narrative to walk the reader from the numeric output to the tangible outcome. And you want to use specific and detailed examples to illustrate your points. Other things to think about, including in your narrative, could be providing evidence to support conclusions, thinking about what funding has allowed you to do that you could not do prior to receiving funding, and could include words like COVID-19 and pandemic when explaining COVID-19 adjustments to the program. What you see on the screen in front of you is an example of the rural program narrative example, which you can review at a later date. Let's discuss best practices for reporting in JustGrants. Common issues arise since you are required to respond to every question. When reporting zeros, if a measure does not apply, you can enter a zero value and then add an explanation by selecting the comments field. A brief description such as "we are still in our planning period" or "there was no activity during the reporting cycle" are acceptable responses in JustGrants. Avoiding duplication and count can also be very challenging. Having more than one person review the data, for example, a program manager, can help ensure duplicate data does not exist in your reporting. And as you know, reporting is awards-based. Another best practice when you have a multiple award is to spend down your funding and create a final report of activities you performed for the oldest award first, before beginning to enter data and reporting on another award. If this is not possible, prorate your quantitative data according to the amount of each award, again, for those of you with multiple awards. You want to contact JustGrants with any concerns related to error messages that you find in JustGrants. You can save your data and resume data entry at a later point in time in JustGrants. And for more information such as this, you want to visit the YouTube video link provided on the screen and provided in chat. You also want to contact the PMT Helpdesk if you have any questions related to progress reporting or reporting on the newly updated performance measures. You are encouraged to reach out to your program manager with questions or concerns. And as mentioned just previously, some grantees have funding from other awards. A service should be reported under one program or the other. The same service cannot be reported under multiple programs. If you have difficulty tracking services for each specific award, work with OJJDP program managers to identify an appropriate method for prorating all services to allocate numbers to each award. This session only focuses on January 2022 reporting. For this July 2021, all discretionary awards will start collecting data on the updated performance measures. You will be reporting on the activities that occurred between July and December 2021 and January 2022. Discretionary awards reporting deadlines are July 30th for the reporting period January 1st through June 30th, and January 30th for the reporting period July 1st through December 31st. Collecting and tracking data that contains personally identifiable information should be done with considerations towards the Privacy Act of 1974. Very broadly stated, the purpose of the Privacy Act is to balance the government's need to maintain information about individuals with the rights of the individual to be protected against unwarranted invasion of their privacy. In accordance with this act, you want to collect only the data you need. If you are using printed materials, you want to keep sensitive PII in locked desk drawers, file cabinets, or similar locked enclosures. And when using sensitive PII, you want to keep it in an area where access is controlled and limited to persons with an official need to know. Reporting in a pandemic. You should complete progress reporting to the best of your ability and submit it before the deadline. Every progress report includes a narrative field or multiple narrative fields where you can provide additional information about the data. Use that space to explain any incomplete or missing data. You're encouraged to use the narrative field that asks for additional information about the effectiveness to describe COVID-19 related adjustments to programming and other activities not captured elsewhere on the form. If you cannot provide accurate count for numerical progress report fields, because project partners do not have access to files, for example, you should leave those fields blank rather than reporting an estimate. As a best practice, you want to communicate setbacks and successes through the use of progress reports as well as with your program specialist. So, you're wondering, how do you report on activities now that they've been shifted to online remote platforms? And when you have not been collecting detailed data on individuals served like you did in face-to-face sessions? The short answer here is to do the best you can and make very good use of those narrative fields. Now I'd like to pass the microphone to Muniba, who will discuss resources and where to go for assistance. Muniba?
Thank you, Rebecca. Now we will briefly go over resources and where to find additional assistance. The PMC Helpdesk is available to help you with any questions you may have about responding to the progress reporting questions or performance measures. You can contact us by calling the number on the screen or emailing OJJDP@ojp.usdoj.gov. For a faster response, we encourage grant award administrators to send the Helpdesk an email. The OJJDP PMT Helpdesk contact information is available on the screen. Our office hours are Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, except for U.S. federal holidays. The PMT Helpdesk returns emails and phone calls within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to leave a voicemail or email even after business hours. If you have questions about the JustGrants system, for example, accessing the system, please call the number on the screen between the hours of 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday, Sunday, and federal holidays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you experience any issues with JustGrants, we strongly encourage grant award administrators to reach out to JustGrants support. JustGrants information, such as instructions on locating, completing, and submitting performance reports in JustGrants, can be found on the OJJDP.ojp.gov website or by viewing the video available on the screen. You can also log into JustGrants at justgrants.usdoj.gov. Thanks. Now back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Muniba. Let's take a moment here and reflect on what was presented today. First, we discussed each of the program-specific measures for the Delinquency Prevention Program, noting specific instances where data would need to be collected and the type of data needed. Next, we learned about best practices for planning, collecting, tracking, and reporting on data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle. An important takeaway mentioned by Ludmill is the fact that OJJDP does understand that data collection will begin in just a few days, and organizations, agencies, and subawards will need time to review, process, and create a data collection plan for these performance measures. Some indicators will be easier to collect than others. We encourage you to work with your partners and TTA providers on a data collection plan. So, what's next? Next steps include the opportunity we all have to collect data that will inform change down the road. For our part, those changes come in the form of edited performance measures. You'll be receiving a fillable feedback form that you are requested to complete and return to the PMT Helpdesk once you have familiarized yourself with the newly updated performance measures. There is one form per performance measure with plenty of room for narrative. Providing us with feedback on the newly revised performance measures gives us the information we need to fully understand your needs or those challenges you face implementing that particular measure. Thus, collecting your feedback now on the newly revised performance measures informs the refresh cycle 1 year after the pilot has occurred and we have identified changes or updates. For now, however, no planned changes to the performance measures are being considered, and we would request that you do not make any changes to any of the documents posted online or provided in the training sessions. And that concludes today's session.